Hello my lovelies, I hope you've had a fabulous week. In today's video I'm going to be adding a little bit of razzle dazzle to this otherwise rather boring vintage inspired sweater that I bought from a charity shop not too long ago. Originally I was thinking that I was going to sew on a cat patch that I had bought from a shop a long time ago, and I just sort of never got round to it. And then I was watching or re-watching a much loved silver screen gem the other day, Carefree, with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, the dream team. And in the film she wears this incredible dress with a heart applique on it, and I love applique. I haven't been doing very much since I stopped working on bridal wear. I've seen this motif crop up a lot on Instagram recently, especially with vintage knitwear. I just thought the jumper was absolutely perfect for getting back into applique. It's been a little while since I've done any. Just wanted a lovely, straightforward but joyous project that I could while away a February afternoon sewing and mucking about with beads and all sorts.
The first thing that I did was to draw out my heart template and get it the size that I wanted, and then I decided to add just the one arrow. You can probably use templates even on Microsoft Word for this, but I hand drew mine, and then I pinned it to some red felt that I had left over from a beret project I did quite a while ago, and cut it out. Working in felt is very satisfying and very easy. If you're new to applique, starting with felt is a really good idea, because worst comes to worst, you can glue it and then sew it. So I'm just cutting it out with my snazzy scissors. I wanted as much sparkle in this project as possible, and that includes with the tools and implements I use to make the heart. I then pinned the heart in place. I did this a couple of times until I was happy with the positioning, and I cut out the arrow section in a lighter pink because it's going to be covered with beads anyway, so it didn't matter too much on the colour, although really a colour that matches the bead or embroidery that you're going to do would be best. And I just tacked that in place with just an ordinary thread. Now the jumper is stretchy, and ordinarily what you would do is need to stabilise the stretchier fabric using some kind of stitch and tear or stabilising medium, which you would tack onto the back of the, or the wrong side even, of the garment. But because felt is so stable, I didn't really feel this was necessary. Another win for using felt when doing applique and decorating garments. I just tacked everything in place, ready to start the next bit, which is the fun bit, which is the beading. You'll need to use a very thin, narrow needle to do beading. I've bought these special beading needles, or beadles as you could call them, to do this, and they're much easier to use than you think they're going to be. The tricky bit is actually threading them, because I just can't seem to see anymore. Age and all that catching up with me. So I thread my thread double, and I'm using red to match the heart, although I suppose really you should match the thread to the colour of the beads. But anyhow, I used red, doubled it, knotted it, and then I'm ready to get beading. I'm using a spare piece of felt as a sort of plate, really. If you put your beads onto the felt, it just stops them rolling around like lunatics, because essentially that's what beads are. The felt just seems to keep them in place and behaving well. And all I do is I pick up a bead with the beadle and sew it in place, and making sure that the needle is actually up through the right side, so that the bead will be on the right side. And I just keep doing that, and I've decided to go round in a silver bead, and I've got a couple of different types of bead here. They're just small shiny beads. I'm not sure what they're called. You can get all sorts, but they're like a seed bead of some kind essentially, and they're a clear glass with a silver inner, which gives quite a nice textured effect. And then originally I was going to also use red, but I end up not using the red, as you will see. Then, very importantly, I had a pecan pie and tea break, which was very lovely. And back to the beading. The brilliant thing about this is that you can build up as much razzle dazzle as you like as you go. It's quite an organic process, and you just sort of feel your way with your applique and then embellishment through beading. You can just go really over the top or keep it fairly simple. It's completely up to you. I think the whole project from start to finish took me just over 4 hours, and I wasn't rushing. I had time for many tea breaks. If you enjoy vintage inspired sewing and DIY style, then please do feel free to subscribe to my channel for lots more of this kind of malarkey. It's really lovely to have you along for the journey, and for those of you who are already subscribed, thank you so much. I'm really grateful that you spend your time with me, and I'm especially grateful for all your lovely comments and support and ideas. Keep them coming, because I think they're wonderful. I also have an online sewing school, Tara's School of Dressmaking, over on Patreon. If you want to learn how to pattern cut, dress make, all the techniques and skills that I've built up over my many years of working as a seamstress and just generally loving making, head on over. There's a link below to see if it's your cup of tea too. I'm now decorating, embellishing the arrow bit of the applique with different beads. These are what I'm calling stick beads, because I just cannot remember the name of them. They are 7mm long, however, I do remember that. And I had two different types. One was a sort of a plain bead, and the other had a bit of a swirly texture inside. So I used both just to create a little bit of depth to the arrow. And here's the progress so far, sort of over halfway through. But as I said, you just keep building up the beading until you're happy with it, really. So you can go as razzle-dazzly as you like or not. I'm really experimenting with this arrow. I just was making this up as I went along, and it's okay. I probably would approach this in a different way if I were to do it again, but it's looking like a arrow through a heart, and that's the main thing, and I'm really pleased with it. And the beading itself is a really therapeutic thing to do. Once you get into the hang of it, it's a really lovely way to spend your time. The final step is to remove all those tacking or basting stitches. Do this as carefully as you can, because some of the tacking threads may be caught up with the beading thread, and you don't want to pull too aggressively and undo all those hours of beading that you've done. That would be rather heartbreaking, which is an appropriate thing to say for this Love Hurts sweater that I have done. This is such a good way of make doing and mending. unloved garments or a garment that you see in a charity shop with potential, you can just decorate it with bits and pieces that you have. So applique flowers onto things or hearts, as I'm doing here. It's a very simple way of completely upgrading an item of clothing that might be unloved into something that you're really excited to wear. And I think that's the great thing about having clothes that you design and make yourself, that you're excited. And here is my heart, all finished and ready to put on. And here's some of the original inspiration. Ginger Rogers in her Howard Greer designed dress, and the Susie sweaters of the 1940s as well. And now this rather boring and uninspiring jumper has been elevated to couture level with a very simple applique and beaded embellishment that I really am absolutely in love with, and I'm going to be wearing this all the time. I hope you've enjoyed my Make, Do and Mend project in this video. It's really lovely of you to take the time to spend the time with me in my little cottage by the sea. I'm always very grateful for your company and your support. If you've been inspired to start razzle-dazzling up your clothes, then I'd love to hear about it. So do pop a comment down below or to the side or wherever comments are now. I really enjoy hearing about your makes too, and I find it really inspiring. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're keeping safe and well, and I look forward to spending more time with you next week. Take care, my lovelies. Bye.